we're going to see if there are any good questions here for the council members, and we'll kind of take turns in answering them. Bay asks for any of the candidates. She's talking about her concern about crime and policing creeping into Martinez from nearby Pleasant Hill Sun Valley Mall. Ben, I'll let you take that one first. Do you have any response to that?
Yeah, sure. On the crime issue, I know that's definitely on people's minds. We have to have we need to have, like all the departments, just the same, the police department, we need to have a staff police department. We need to recruit and retain good people because you get what you pay for, and that's really important. And we're functioning with, on the average, 3 officers on a shift at any given time. For our city, that's not enough. There's supposed to be 5. So I see, especially south of 4 in our district, south of 4, west of Morello, I see more Pleasant Hill cops than Martinez cops. And that's not any slight on the Martinez cops. It's just that I don't see them, and that's an issue. So we need to address the staffing issue in all the departments, and also the police department.
Great. Brianne or Nikenyan, does either of you want to add anything or respond to that?
Yeah, I would like to, first of all, when it comes to the rising of crime, poverty is the #1 source. So I don't think that just staffing with police is going to be the only thing that keeps, people from doing the types of things that they're doing. I mean, you can't 100% stop crime, but we do need to have better staffing for our police officers here. But I also feel like we should also make sure that we are meeting the needs of people so that they don't feel like they have to commit crimes, and give them, some things to do that'll help.
Thank you, Nikenyan. Brianne, did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, actually, I really appreciate both of their responses. I think that to what Ben said, he is absolutely right. Our police force is understaffed, which is an issue. But Nikenyan is also right. Supporting those folks that are underserved really helps keep everyone in the city of Martinez feeling safe and protected. I think it's important for us to recognize that crime in the city of Martinez has consistently been very low, and we're very, very lucky for that because we live in an inherently safe community. And to echo what Councilmember McKillop said earlier, is that we have invested in the safety of our communities with Measure X several years ago. So I think it's important for us to acknowledge some of the good progress that we've made, and I think we're on the right track to continue making that progress.
Thank you, Brianne. I'm going to please everybody try to keep your answers brief, 60 to 75 seconds. This one's for Nikenyan, so I'll let her answer it first, but if Ben or Brianne wants to add anything afterwards. Nikenyan, how do you plan to be inclusive of the LGBTQ community in Martinez?
Well, I will continue to do what I've been doing. And I consider the LGBTQ community a part of my family. And we have grown not only really close here, but a lot of the issues that I face as a African-American woman, the trans communities of color face as well. So I try to, when I speak on the disenfranchised communities, you could definitely assume that they are included. They're in everything that I would like to do. Take a look at my website. They are mentioned in there. Thank you.
Ben or Brianne, do you have anything you want to add?
Sure. I think one of the things I'd like to see in Martinez is, some focus on care, some government, and some equity policies in government that are specific and that touch on these issues, and that also that elected council members participate in events and actually have good reaching and dialogue in communities that I think are underserved or have not been the focus in the past. I think that's very important, and as a Native man, I definitely understand that as well. And I think we just need to uplift the people in these and how we can make our city work better for them as well.
Thank you. Bree,
Yeah, just a real quick addition to that. I appreciate both of their responses. I think this has been a critique from a variety of folks in the community that the LGBTQ community has not been properly appreciated. And even Kenya has voiced, that we haven't had a large city sponsored Pride event, for example. The one thing that I was able to say I got this year was having the Pride flag flown at City Hall for a whole month, but that's literally the only thing that I can say that we were able to do. So I think that I really support this question, and I hope that folks who feel that they are not being supported from the dais on City Council can reach out to us and see if there are ways for us to better more publicly support the community that we absolutely support.
Thank you. Ben, this question's addressed to you. Are you more for police transparency so far as police actions? There have been questionable actions by the police that favor the rich and powerful and disfavor others. And of course, Nakenya or Bree can answer as well after Ben.
Absolutely. I mean, and whatever is legally permissible, I'm very much in favor of transparent law enforcement practices and policies. And if there are issues that come up, I want to see those handled and addressed. I think there should be avenues to proceed, and those should be clear so that people can address their government. And law enforcement is generally the kind of the first or front line of what a lot of people run into in government, and so that's very important. I've supported that as a police union president, as a candidate for sheriff, and I think it's important that we have that process in place, that people feel that it's successful in our city as well.
Bree or Nakenya?
Can you?
Nakenya.
Yeah. So this was about transparency in policing.
Yes.
Okay. So this is a very good question, because a lot of the work that I have been doing for the last few years was trying to update the training for bias with our Martinez Police Department and get a better understanding as to what the investment of that was. I really tried to make sure that in the aftermath of George Floyd, we were capable of doing better here. And I really went as far as I could go with the leadership at that time. But unfortunately, we didn't really follow through with a lot of the things that the different communities needed. I think that if elected, definitely having some sort of oversight committee for policing is really important, because what was happening in Martinez was that the trans community or the African Americans we had to call them out on each thing that they were doing that was offensive. And that's a task for a community, and that's wrong. We should not have to do that or have it thrown in our faces with a lack of accountability.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Yes, that's just one quick addition to that. I acknowledge, Nakenya's concern about, bias training. And what I was surprised when I was on council is how much training the police force in the city of Martinez actually does. And what they're not good at is communicating the good things that they have been doing to the community. And so that's something that has been, on my priority list, is to really make more transparent what they do and what they don't do. The slow, the cultural changes that are clearly required in modern policing are not something that can happen overnight. It's a slow process, but you have to give yourself credit for the small gains that you're making. And if you don't tell anybody that you're doing anything, even the good stuff, then nobody knows. And so I think people did hear, Nakenya when she was making those requests, and I know that those things are happening. And I have been encouraging the police and the leadership of the police to continue working towards that ultimate goal. And I think they're making good progress. They're definitely, not there yet, but they're on their way. So wanted to add that to it.
I forget whether you all three had an opportunity there. I think you did. Is that right? I'm going to direct this one to Brianne because she's on the council right now. Sorry about that. What's the long-range plan to address water resources with all the increased housing, businesses, et cetera? And a different person is also asking about addressing occasional flooding in various areas. How will the city assess and address infrastructure to help mitigate flooding? So we've got water supply relative to new building and flooding related to a variety of stuff.
Sure. That's a lot of different questions. So our water supply is provided to us raw, and then we process it. We're very lucky. Our water supply comes from the Delta and then pumped to the Los Vaqueros reservoir. So we do have that extra added benefit that there is a reservoir where our water comes from. Many of you probably recognize that your rates have gone up this year in an attempt to get us to reduce our water consumption. I think that was a good plan. We have a drought management plan going into effect. If anybody is watering with a hose between 9 and 5, you're actually in violation of the ordinance that we passed earlier this year. So I think from that perspective, we are making inroads, and this is not something that just one person in the city can do, right? This is a entire citywide effort to just in general reduce our water consumption. From a flooding perspective, I think this topic already came up earlier with respect to, building housing waterward of the railroad tracks. We, as a city of Martinez, are absolutely within the hazard zone for flooding as far as sea level rise goes. And we need to make sure that we are doing our planning to take those types of environmental issues into consideration as we're looking to, revitalize the waterfront and also build along Alhambra Creek. That said, I'm not completely sure that the comment about flooding is respect to precipitation-based flooding, because a lot of the work that was already done at the plaza was intended to alleviate a lot of that. So our floods that we used to have, we don't have quite as much because of some of those infrastructure improvements. And you'll see that there's also been some additional, more recent ones and some sediment removal to increase capacity in Alhambra Creek heading towards the strait.
Well, she said, for example, there's a culvert near us that also needs updating, but I'm gonna add in an editorial comment here that Thousand Friends has been playing a leadership role on urging the city both to update the general plan and to make it better. And we've been pushing all along for what seems to us to be a pretty obvious common sense approach that in the marina and the area north of the tracks, we shouldn't be building more things that'll be subject to additional sea level rise. So in terms of water supply or mitigating flooding, Nikenya or Ben, are there things you'd like to add? Ben first.
In water supply, I mean, I want to, some of the things that I've seen in the improvement plans and that have been discussed at council, like for example, in District 4, the Webster pump station was basically put on hold. And this is stuff from previous master plans, but I mean, it was put on hold. Just some of our water and infrastructure upgrades should not be put on hold while we wait for it was, and this is how it was written into the CAFR, the pending development results of the Alhambra Highlands ballot issue. Well, obviously that's not going to happen, as thankfully, but that was basically getting a correct pumping stations and water infrastructure stuff was dependent upon whether there was going to be development or not. And sometimes for certain things, like, you can't wait for that. That's just as much a part of public safety as it has having police, because if you can't pump water for a wildland fire, then we're going to be in serious trouble. So the things like that, when it comes to infrastructure and our water supply, because we have these types of resources, are extremely important. And then regards to climate change and all that, we need to be good stewards of the land, stewards of the water, and that means not encroaching on the waterfront where we're going to run into problems with development.
Thank you, Ben. Nikenya, did you want to respond to this one? Okay, I'm going to let any of you tell us who wants to jump in on this one. We're new homeowners here in Martinez and being stuck with fees that previous owners didn't pay because they chose to not legalize their accessory dwelling unit. As a result, we haven't been able to rent our unit to support the purchase of our home. This doesn't support growth in the city. We're worried that we'll have to sell and leave. What ideas do you have to support new homeowners? Anybody want to take a shot at that one?
I kind of touched on it in the chat. I think, or sorry, I think I did a direct message. That issue, same thing. You know, when I was renting here, and when I first moved to Martinez, and then when I bought, it was similar circumstances. Like, it was contingencies, like, you know, take it or leave it. So I understand, and you know, I understand that. But if people were doing things, especially since around housing and like ADUs, it would be nice if, and I don't know if it's possible, but I mean, that the city could go after people after the fact. I mean, the burden shouldn't be on the people who purchased these things that were out of pocket. That shouldn't come down. So I don't know what the legal ramifications, or, you know, what type of you know, things could be accomplished. But I mean, that would be how I would look at it. Is we have to make sure that we do that we have enough personnel to make sure that people, if they are doing these things, that are held accountable. Number one, and two, if people slide through the cracks, that the city can still, you know, go after them, because that shouldn't fall on new folks. That's not fair.
Bree or Nikenya want to deal with new homeowners with fees, etc.?
I agree.
Don't feel like you need to if you don't really have something to add. But Nikenya?
I was going to say I agree with Ben that this isn't the first time I'm hearing this, and I don't know what the legal ramifications are either. I would actually wonder if Bree has anything to say about it, since she's been there.
Yeah, I appreciate Misha and Jody asking this question, because, you know, this happens when you are looking to purchase a property. They don't they don't allow you to, you know, take credit for unpermitted spaces. And so I think that's super frustrating for you. Absolutely. That you thought you were getting something that you could then rent out that now you can't. So I've heard these types of complaints before. I don't know if city rules regarding ADUs or junior ADUs or anything like that. I don't think we have any control of this. It sounds like it's a central SANS policy. But I would be happy to speak with you. So reach out to me after this, because see if there's something that we can do, if I can connect you with somebody on city staff who knows more than I do on this specific topic, who might be able to help you through that process.
And people have been amazingly good about staying over an hour. We're at an hour and 18 minutes now. So I want to really thank all of our participants, Brianne Zorn for mayor, Nikenya Allen for District 1, Ben Terrio and Debbie McKillop for District 4. And I would remind you all, thank you so much for attending. Please go to www.1000friendsmartinez.org and join our e-blast list and make a donation. We can only do these kinds of things if you help support us and become one of the 1,000 friends. And thanks everyone for attending. Let's give everybody a round of applause. And we'll hope to see you at the next event. Keep watching our e-blast for more information about the council races and the election. And we'll see you next time. And Dan, you can stop recording.